Happy New Year. Merry seventh day of Christmas. I hope you enjoy New Year's Eve. In my end is my beginning. So wrote T.S. Eliot. We stand here in what Joel Goldsmith called a parenthesis, that space where we stand between what has been and what's being born. We stand in the field of possibility, ready to make 2026 the best year we've had yet, personally and as a community. A few years ago, we were driving home from church, from our center, and Suzanne asked a rather interesting question. Can you be unethical and still experience joy? Living in true joy means you're living in integrity, since joy is an attribute of God. If you don't follow an ethical life, you may have moments of happiness, but true joy? I think not. Joy comes from the truth of your being. If you're living in integrity, you're living ethically, and therefore you're closer to your true self. I think of Howard Hughes, a truly wealthy man who had everything one could want on the material plane. Did he have joy in it? From what I gather, he was miserable, always thinking someone would arise to take his wealth from him. I don't know of his ethics, but his fear of losing his wealth makes me wonder. We've just celebrated Christmas, and I hope yours was merry. The well-known Christmas carol, Joy to the World, contains the line, repeat the sounding joy. The line is sung 3 times. Repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy. We are to repeat the joy. We are to repeat the joy that resounds and abounds at this time of year. We're to scatter and spread joy. Joy is the most wonderful attribute of God and thus of God's expressions, us. This season reminds us of a practice that's good to do throughout the year, to share joy with all. We scatter joy to the world. We can do that by seeing the joy in every moment, in every situation. A fundamental principle of our philosophy is that what you focus on expands. When you focus your energy on joy, love, harmony, and like qualities, they expand in your life and you spread them to those around you. How do we live in the joy that God is as us? The Bhagavad Gita says that when you know who you are, you'll know what to do. Stand firm in the highest of who you are, and joy lives you. The title of this talk is Behold, I Make All Things New. Now, we normally think of creativity as the creation of the fine arts, the composers, the artists, the choreographers, the writers, the poets, the sculptors, the architects, the great chefs, and those who interpret those works, the singers, the dancers, the producers, the directors, actors, musicians. This area is home to many artistic demonstrations and politics, which is its own form of artistic demonstration. Someone once quipped that politics is show business for unattractive people. So based on that, this town has no rivals in show business. Creative people are successful people. All the people who are doing what their hearts call them to do are successful, regardless of the way others define success and happiness. They are living the lives they want to live. Dr. Raymond Charles Barker had an interesting definition of success. It's doing what you want to do, when you want to do it, in the way that you want to do it. We could all live our lives in this manner. Truly creative people are those who are asking questions and seeing a vision that might be theirs and theirs alone. This is the first step to creating our life in the way that we want to have it. One of the most important words in creating the life we want to live in the manner we want to live it is that dreaded C word. For some, this word is more dreaded than any next to death: commitment. Success is seeing your vision and sticking with your vision. Success is knowing that the answer exists and sticking with the question through to the answer. One of our founding ministers at Celebration Center, Reverend Noel McInnes, used to talk about living with the question. There are many times when you live with the question until the answer appears. Sometimes the answer appears in a way we don't think about. There was a man who was a government functionary, took a train into his job on a daily basis. On his daily train ride, he'd pass a clock. I'm sure, like most people on that train, he would frequently look at the clock and think, do I have time to take a leisurely stroll to my office? Or do I need to hurry because I'm going to be late? Now, how many people pass the clock and ask the same question? However, he sometimes asked another question. What would happen if I were on a light beam? Or a train traveling at the speed of light? That clock wouldn't seem to move. It would just be the same time. From this question, he went on to develop the answer. And the answer was the beginning of modern physics. The wonders that we have today, from nuclear power to the semiconductors that are behind the devices we take so much for granted, such as cell phones, computers, and the many other devices we have in our lives, in part are the result of the answer to this question. The resultant answer to the question gave us the special theory of relativity and the larger general theory. Yes, this man was Albert Einstein. And we think of Einstein as a brilliant man, a genius. But when he asked the question that led to so much, was he so much using his brilliance? Or just looking at a phenomenon in a new way? Maybe that was his brilliance. Behold, I make all things new. Dr. Arthur Chang, the now retired senior minister at the Founders Church of Religious Science in Los Angeles, says that some people want to get to the answer before they live the question. Fred Allen Wolf says in What the Bleep Do We Know that the real trick to life is not to be in the know, but to be in the mystery. Clearly, Einstein wasn't rushing to get to the answer, to be in the know, before he lived the question. That rush to get to the end can keep us from asking the real question, the question behind the question. If we keep doing that, eventually we get to the root question. Now, it's true that we must know what we're aiming for, what it is that we desire. As my favorite yogi, Bera, once said, if you don't know where you're going, you might not get there. And as Richard Bach reminds us in Jonathan Livingston Seagull, perhaps my favorite quote, some of you have heard it often, you must begin by knowing that you have already arrived. Charles Fillmore, the founder of Unity, said when he was 94 years old, I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm as I spring forth with a mighty faith to do that which ought to be done by me. Quite a statement from a 94-year-old. I hope I'm like that when I'm 94. How do we know that which is ours to do? That knowing is necessary before we can know that we've arrived. How would you know that you've arrived if you didn't know where you were going? Jesus tells us, ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find. He also tells us the Father knows what you have need of before you ask. So how do we get to that root question? How do we find that which is ours to do? The answer is to keep asking until you find the desire of your heart. One of the best-known Disney songs tells us a dream is a wish your heart makes. What wish is your heart making today? Now, I'm sure that when you were young, you asked questions. Some of these questions were easily answered. Some were not. Questions engender answers. Fred Allen Wolf, in his book, The Spiritual Universe, says that we have all the right answers, but we need to ask the right questions. It might not even be asking the right questions, but asking the right questions in a different way. I've observed in my life that if I ask a question, I get an answer. This answer may not be one I understand. If I ask the question in a different way, I get a different answer. This one I may understand, and I get one of those aha moments. Aha moments are fun and exciting. They're that moment when all things fall into place. Einstein's aha moment was the generator for a fundamental change in the way we view the universe. Aha moments come at various times. On our trip home from the theater a few years ago, we had such a moment. A few years ago, we saw a production of the musical Nine. Good show. The lead character is a movie producer and ladies' man named Guido Contini. In a song from the show called Growing Tall, young Guido, age 9, is singing to the adult Guido. And he sings of knowing you have no one if you try to have them all. Guido was trying to have every woman he met. By trying to have everyone and everything, Guido at 40 ends up with none of them. In spite of all the trappings of success, Guido is alone, scorned by his many friends and lovers and his associates in the movie business. The show ends just after this aha of Guido's when he realizes that the only way he can have it all is by having the one woman who's loved him through all of it, his wife. Guido had not been living in accord with his highest and best. He'd substituted pleasure for joy. He wasn't being true to who he really was. And the walls of his life crashed around him. So what shall we bring forward in our best life? As we move in the direction of our best life, we move toward that which our heart is making, that wish our heart is making. We unfold the perfection that we are, expressing God in a fuller and fuller way each moment. Dr. Chang reminds us that 10 years from now, you'll be 10 years older, whether you do what you love or not. So do what you love. Live as if every day is a good day and see the potential in every situation. And seeing the potential comes from our intentions. When we're committed to good, good arises. When we're committed to success, our life overflows with it. But if we disperse our energy into a little of this and a little of that, we get a little of this and a little of that. Instead of our lives being a banquet, we got the selection at the buffet restaurant. Not that there's anything wrong with a buffet place, but in comparison to the banquet, it's mundane. It's the same thing. God has a banquet for you, but you have to go to the banquet. If you keep going to the buffet, you'll get the same thing time after time. It is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. In The Science of Successful Living, Dr. Raymond Charles Barker writes, "You are divinely equipped to think what the great have thought through their books, music, art, theater, and science. In addition, your equipment of consciousness includes your ability to have original ideas rise within you." The idea that Einstein had when he looked at that clock was one such idea. Those ideas are God expressing as and through us in an original way. As Ernest Holmes said, principle is not bound by precedent. T.S. Eliot says in his poem East Coker, "There is, it seems to us, at best, only a limited value in the knowledge derived from experience. The knowledge imposes a pattern and falsifies, for the pattern is new in every moment, and every moment is a new and shocking evaluation of all we have been. Thus, each new moment is a chance to break the patterns that have kept us in the same old thing and break out into a successful new life. Take that opportunity today. Behold, I make all things new." Happy New Year.